Sarah Mitchell walked into Fort Braxton's civilian shooting range on a quiet Saturday afternoon, carrying a worn leather case that had seen better days. The range officer, Sergeant Davis, greeted her with the practiced courtesy he reserved for weekend shooters. He noted her calm demeanor and the way she handled the range card with careful precision when signing in. Nothing about her suggested the extraordinary revelation that would unfold in the next few hours. The range was moderately busy that afternoon. Several soldiers from the nearby base were practicing their marksmanship, their conversations punctuated by the rhythmic crack of gunfire. Davis assigned Sarah to Lane 7 and went through the standard safety briefing. She listened attentively, nodding at the appropriate moments, asking no questions. Just another civilian learning to shoot, he thought. Sarah unpacked her equipment methodically. A standard Glock 19, nothing fancy, and a box of practice ammunition. She loaded her magazine with the same careful attention to detail that characterized everything she did. Davis noticed her grip was correct, her stance was solid, but plenty of people watched YouTube videos and learned the basics. He returned to his duties, keeping half an eye on her as she began to shoot. The first shot rang out. Through his peripheral vision, Davis saw the impact marker light up in the 10-ring, dead center. Rodriguez glanced over and remarked that it was a nice shot, attributing it to beginner's luck, which he assured everyone was real. Sarah fired her second round, and it was another perfect 10. Thompson started paying attention, noting that 2 for 2 was pretty good shooting. The third shot hit the 10-ring, as did the fourth and fifth. By now, the shooting in adjacent lanes had slowed considerably as other shooters began to notice what was happening. Rodriguez lowered his pistol and stared at Sarah's target through his scope, muttering in disbelief at what he was seeing. 5 shots, 5 perfect 10s. Thompson was equally bewildered, repeating that it wasn't normal, not normal at all. Davis walked over to inspect Sarah's target more closely. The 5 bullet holes were clustered so tightly in the center that they almost formed a single ragged hole. He addressed her with newfound respect, telling her this was exceptional shooting and asking if she had formal training. Sarah paused, seeming to consider her words carefully before responding that she had some instruction. Williams had joined the small crowd gathering around Lane 7 and couldn't contain his skepticism. He insisted this wasn't just some instruction but expert-level marksmanship. But no one could have guessed her true identity. Davis made a decision and asked if she would be interested in trying the 25-yard targets, suggesting she was ready for more of a challenge. Sarah nodded, saying she'd like that. The targets were changed out to 25 yards, a distance that separated the good shooters from the great ones. Rodriguez and Thompson decided to shoot alongside her, curious to see how she'd perform at the longer range. Rodriguez muttered that now it gets interesting, explaining that 25 yards is where technique really matters. Sarah took her position again, but this time her preparation was more deliberate. She adjusted her stance slightly, checked her sight alignment with extra care, and controlled her breathing with the precision of a yoga instructor. Her first shot at 25 yards rang out, and Davis checked the scope to see it had hit the 10-ring dead center. The murmur of conversation on the range died down as shooters in other lanes began to notice what was happening in Lane 7. Her second shot was a perfect 10, as was her third. By the fifth shot, Sarah had achieved something that Davis had rarely seen in his 15 years of range management: a perfect group at 25 yards with a service pistol. Rodriguez set down his gun entirely and gave up, asking who she really was and whether she was FBI or Secret Service. Thompson was examining Sarah's target with a magnifier, noting that the shots were so close together you could cover them with a quarter. He mentioned he'd seen competitive shooters who couldn't do this. Williams approached Sarah directly and told her that with all due respect, this level of shooting didn't come from weekend classes at the local gun store. This was professional grade marksmanship. Then something happened that changed everything. At that moment, the range door opened and in walked a figure that made every military person on the range straighten up slightly. Colonel Jack Morrison, 59 years old, was the legendary marksmanship instructor who had trained more elite snipers than any other person in the Army. Although retired, he still consulted at various military facilities and was a fixture at Fort Braxton. Morrison had the kind of presence that commanded respect without saying a word. With silver hair, steel-gray eyes, and the bearing of someone who had spent decades in service to his country, he noticed the crowd gathered around Lane 7 and approached with interest. He asked what all the excitement was about, and Davis explained that this civilian had just shot 2 perfect groups at 10 yards and 25 yards, with every shot center mass. Morrison walked over to examine Sarah's targets, and his expression grew more serious as he studied the tight groupings. This wasn't just good shooting. This was the kind of precision he had seen only in his most elite students. He addressed Sarah directly and asked her name. She replied that her name was Sarah Mitchell, meeting his gaze steadily. Morrison's eyebrows furrowed as the name seemed familiar, but he couldn't quite place it. He repeated her name and then added her middle name, asking if she was Sarah Elizabeth Mitchell. Something shifted in Sarah's posture, a subtle change but noticeable to someone with Morrison's experience. She confirmed, "Yes, sir." Morrison's eyes widened as recognition dawned, and he exclaimed in amazement, mentioning Charlie Company, 3rd Battalion, Operation Desert Shield. The range fell completely silent. Rodriguez whispered to Thompson, asking who she was. Morrison looked at Sarah with a mixture of pride and amazement and made an introduction that would change everything. He told the assembled gentlemen that he was introducing Staff Sergeant Sarah Mitchell, formerly of the Army's elite sniper program, one of the finest marksmen he'd ever had the privilege to train. And in that moment, silence gave way to respect. The revelation hit the range like a thunderbolt. Thompson's mouth hung open while Rodriguez actually took a step back. Williams removed his cap in a gesture of respect. Morrison continued, his voice carrying the weight of memory. He explained that Sarah had graduated from his advanced sniper course 7 years ago and completed the program with a 98% accuracy rating at distances up to 1,500 meters. Only 3 students in the history of his program had achieved that level of proficiency, but Thompson was confused, noting that she was a nurse, still trying to process this information. Sarah smiled gently and confirmed she was now a nurse. After she left the Army, she went to nursing school and now worked in the trauma unit at Charlotte General. Morrison nodded approvingly and explained that Sarah had served 3 tours in Afghanistan and was part of some of the most challenging missions in the region. He asked her to confirm her numbers, and Sarah said quietly that it was 47 confirmed. But she preferred not to dwell on those numbers anymore. Rodriguez found his voice and repeated the number in disbelief, calling her a legend. Sarah corrected him gently, saying she was a soldier, but now she was a nurse, and she preferred saving lives to taking them. Morrison's expression softened with paternal pride as he told everyone that Sarah represented the very best of what the military produces, not just technical skill, but character, integrity, and the wisdom to know when to fight and when to heal. Williams stepped forward and told her he owed her an apology, as they all did because they had made assumptions. Sarah interrupted to say no apology was necessary, as they had no way of knowing. She added honestly that she preferred it that way, explaining that her past was her past and what mattered was what she did now. Davis, still somewhat stunned, managed to ask if she would be willing to demonstrate some long-range shooting, mentioning they had targets out to 300 yards. Sarah looked to Morrison, who nodded encouragingly, and she said she thought she'd enjoy that. Everyone turned to look at Linda, and slowly recognition dawned on their faces. Is that Linda, our hairdresser?" "Not just a hairdresser, apparently," Peterson said, his trained eye recognizing military-grade equipment and the bearing of someone with serious combat experience. "Miss Walker, I think you and I need to have a conversation, a classified one." 3 hours later, Linda sat in a secure conference room with Colonel Peterson, a representative from CIA and a very confused base intelligence officer. "So let me get this straight," the CIA representative said, reading from a file that had just been delivered via secure courier. "You're Captain Linda Walker, former Special Activities Division with over 60 successful missions in hostile territory. You were one of our most effective operators before you requested reassignment to inactive status 3 years ago. That's correct, Linda confirmed. And you've been working as a hairdresser at this base for 3 years without anyone knowing your real background. Also correct. Why didn't you tell us? Peterson asked. We could have used someone with your skills. Because I was done with that life, Colonel. I'd done enough missions, seen enough death, made enough impossible choices. I wanted to be normal. FOR once. Cut hair, have conversations about weekend plans, just exist without constantly looking over my shoulder or calculating kill zones. What changed? The CIA representative asked. 4 good men were going to die. Men I knew who had treated me with respect and kindness for 3 years. I couldn't just let them be executed when I had the skills to prevent it. Peterson leaned back in his chair. You eliminated 52 enemy fighters single-handedly in under 4 hours. That's not just skills, Miss Walker. That's legendary. I did what needed to be done. The question now, the CIA representative said, is what happens next? You broke cover, revealed your identity, and conducted an unauthorized military operation on foreign soil. Technically, that's a lot of violations. Linda met his eyes steadily. Are you going to arrest me? Arrest you? No, we're going to offer you a choice. You can go back to inactive status with a new identity and a new location, or you can return to active duty. Based on what you just accomplished, I think we both know which option serves the country better. I choose inactive status, Linda said immediately. The room fell silent. You sure? Peterson asked. After what you just did, you want to go back to being a hairdresser? I want to go back to being normal. What I did last night wasn't who I want to be. It's who I had to be for a few hours to save lives, but that's not my identity anymore. The CIA representative closed his file. Very well. We'll arrange a new identity and relocation. You'll have to leave FOB Phoenix, of course. Too many people know now. I understand. As the meeting concluded, Morrison appeared at the door. Sir, permission to speak with Miss Walker? Peterson nodded. And Linda stepped outside with the SEAL team leader? The guys wanted me to thank you, Morrison said. We owe you our lives. You don't owe me anything. I'm just glad you're safe. Linda, or whatever your real name is, what you did was incredible. You're a better operator than most of the Special Forces soldiers I've worked with. I appreciate that, but I'm done being an operator. I just want to cut hair and talk about weekend plans, Morrison smiled. For what it's worth, you gave a damn good haircut, too. Best I ever had. Have you ever accomplished something extraordinary only to realize you'd rather be ordinary? Sometimes our greatest skills are the ones we're most eager to leave behind. 1 week later, Linda Walker disappeared from FOB Phoenix. The official story was that she had been recalled for a family emergency. Most people accepted this without question. The 4 SEALs knew better, but they never talked about what really happened. The mission was classified at the highest levels. The after-action reports were sealed, and the truth about the hairdresser who eliminated 52 enemy fighters remained a secret. But something unexpected happened in the days before Linda left. Word had spread through unofficial channels, not the classified details, but enough for people to understand that their hairdresser had done something extraordinary. Soldiers who had barely acknowledged her before now looked at her with newfound respect. Some wanted to ask questions but didn't know how. Others simply nodded in silent recognition when they passed her. The base commander quietly recommended her for a classified commendation that would never appear in any official record. The CIA representative who had offered her return to active duty left his card with a simple message: when you're ready to stop pretending. Linda spent her final days at FOB Phoenix doing what she had always done, cutting hair, making small talk, being normal. But now she understood something she hadn't before. Being normal wasn't about hiding who she was. It was about choosing who she wanted to be. On her last day, the 4 SEALs came to the salon together, not for haircuts, but to say goodbye. We're going to miss you, Morrison said, speaking for all of them. I'll miss you guys too, Linda replied, genuine emotion in her voice. One question, Blake asked. When you were cutting our hair all those times, listening to us talk about missions and tactics, were you analyzing us? Linda smiled. Every single time, force of habit. You guys are very good at what you do, by the way. Not as good as you, Martinez said quietly. Different skills for different purposes, Linda corrected. You save people as a team. I used to. Save people by being alone. Your way is better. Chun handed her a small box. We wanted you to have this, something to remember us by. Inside was a sealed trident pin, the symbol of naval special warfare, but this one had been modified with an engraving on the back, Shadow from the Dream Team. Shadow? Linda asked. It's what we're calling you in the classified reports, Morrison explained. The operators who reviewed your mission footage couldn't believe one person did all that. They said you moved like a shadow. I prefer Linda, she said, but she kept the pin. 2 months later, in a small town in Montana, a new hair salon opened. The owner was a friendly woman in her early 30s with honey blonde hair and hazel eyes that seemed to notice everything while appearing to notice nothing. Her name was Sarah Mitchell, and she was just a hairdresser. But in a secure facility in Virginia, there was a file with her real identity and a single notation, inactive status, available for recall in case of emergency, requiring impossible operations because some skills never really retire. They just wait quietly like scissors in a drawer ready to be picked up again when someone needs cutting, the customers at Sarah's salon in. Montana had no idea that the woman cutting their hair had once been one of America's most effective covert operators. They just knew she gave great haircuts, remembered everyone's name, and always asked about their weekends. And that was exactly how Sarah, formerly Linda, formerly Captain Walker, wanted it. Until the next time 4 good people needed someone willing to pick up something deadlier than scissors if you've ever hidden your most impressive skills because you just wanted to be normal, remember Linda Walker. Sometimes the most extraordinary people are the ones who choose to be ordinary, right up until the moment when extraordinary is exactly what the situation demands. The hairdresser, who saved 4 Navy SEALs, proved that sometimes the most dangerous person in the room is the one everyone thinks is harmless. And sometimes the person cutting your hair has killed more enemy fighters than most soldiers ever see. In combat, but you'll never know unless someone needs saving. And by then, it's already too late for everyone except the people they're protecting. In new salon in Montana. Sarah Mitchell kept the seal trident pin in a locked drawer beneath her station. On quiet evenings after closing, she would sometimes take it out and remember the night she stopped being a hairdresser and became Shadow again. She didn't miss the violence. She didn't miss the constant vigilance or the weight of impossible decisions.